I don't remember my name anymore. Not because I forgot. I remember it perfectly, every syllable, every letter. But I don't say it. I don't write it. I don't even mouth it when I'm alone. I can't. No one can. Not if they want to live. The alert came in at 2:14 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Every phone, TV, radio, billboard, smart fridge, everything with a screen or a speaker lit up and blared the same message in cold, clipped language. Emergency alert, effective immediately. All citizens must forget their name. Do not say IT. Do not write IT. Do not think about IT. You must never use your name again. This is not a drill. Then, a second message. Exactly 90 seconds later, any individual who speaks or writes their name will be located. Do not attempt to interfere. She knows the sound. She knows the shape. She will come. It didn't feel real at first. My phone had screamed awake on my nightstand. I thought it was another one of those nuclear drills or a mass text error. I sat up groggy, squinting at the brightness in the dark. I thought I was dreaming. I wish I had been dreaming, because I did the stupidest thing anyone could have done. I got scared. I panicked, and I wrote my name down in my journal to make sure I didn't forget it. Now she knows it, and she's coming for me. I live alone. It's a one-bedroom apartment on the top floor of an old brick building in the middle of a mid-sized city, just far enough from downtown to feel forgotten, but not quite suburban. When the alert hit, I was already half asleep on the couch. I'd passed out with the TV playing some documentary about plane crashes, and I thought the alert was just part of the show at first. But it didn't stop. The sound came from everywhere. The TV, the phone, the speakers in my bedroom, even my old digital clock, the one that hadn't worked in years, buzzed like it was coming back to life. That's what made me sit up. That's what made me listen. When I read the words on my phone, my heart thudded once, hard. It felt like a cruel joke, an experiment, something some hacker group would do for laughs. But when I flipped over to the news, the same alert was crawling across every channel. No anchors, no people, just text. One of those deep, computerized voices reciting the warning over and over in mechanical rhythm. Forget your name. Never speak IT again. Never write IT down. Do not think about IT. I did what I imagined most people did. I laughed, nervously. I paced the room muttering, "What the hell is going on?" I texted friends. I called my brother. No answer. I checked Twitter. And then I did the one thing I wasn't supposed to do. I grabbed my notebook from the desk drawer. It's the one I use for grocery lists, quick sketches, and random thoughts. On the first blank page I scribbled, "My name is redacted." I stared at the words. It felt like insurance, like a tether to normalcy. I didn't want to forget myself. I should have burned that page right then. But I didn't. Instead, I left the journal sitting on my desk like it was nothing. 5 minutes later, I heard the first scream. It came from the street below, a woman's voice, shattered and shrill, the kind of scream that makes your throat ache just hearing it. I ran to the window. There were others doing the same, heads sticking out of apartment windows, phones out, everyone wondering if we'd all just witnessed a crime. And then someone ran into the middle of the street. A man, maybe mid-40s, balding, shirtless, barefoot. His arms were flailing as he screamed, "I didn't mean it. I didn't mean to say it. Please." That's when I heard the sound. It didn't come from any direction I could place. It just bloomed in the air. A deep static, like white noise slowed down and dropped an octave. You didn't just hear it, you felt it. It made the windows tremble and something inside my chest knot tight. Everyone on the street froze. The man kept running, toward nothing. "I take IT back," he screamed. "I take IT back." He was gone. No flash, no puff of smoke. Just one moment there, the next, emptiness. Not even a sound to mark it. 1 second his feet slapped against the asphalt, and the next, they didn't. The silence afterward was worse than the scream. I closed the curtains and turned off every light in the apartment. The white noise was gone. replaced by the kind of quiet that doesn't feel natural, the kind that presses against your skull like it wants inside. I locked my doors, all three of them. I don't know why. Locking a door felt like a joke after what I'd just seen. I didn't sleep that night. Around 4 in the morning, my phone vibrated. It was a mass message from the National Emergency Response Authority, a real agency, but one I'd never heard of before. All citizens must renounce their names. Do not attempt to recall or preserve them. Those who disobey may be targeted. There was a link to a government site. I clicked it. The page was black with red text. No logos, no flag, just one sentence at the top. The sound of your name, I sell light in the darkness. She can see sound. Underneath that was a running counter of presumed victims. It updated in real time. Every second, the number ticked upward. 18,491. 18,492. 18,495. It jumped by fives, tens, dozens at a time. There was a chat room too, just one massive scrolling list of messages. I didn't write mine. My roommate said hers. She's gone. He joked about it, just once. Gone. What does she look like? Why is it names? Someone said it in a dream and vanished in their sleep. My mom has dementia. She keeps repeating hers. I don't know how to make her stop. The sound is outside my house. At 6 a.m., the sky went gray like a storm was coming. But the clouds didn't move. The birds didn't chirp. Everything felt like it had stopped. I stood in my kitchen and stared at the journal, at the page where I'd written my name. It wasn't glowing. It wasn't smoking. It was just there. But the longer I looked at it, the more I felt like I was being watched. I ripped the page out. I burned it. I even opened the window and let the ashes fly into the street below, like that would undo what I'd done. It didn't, because by then it was too late. She already knew. I spent the next day trying to pretend like everything was going to be fine. It was a stupid instinct. You'd think after seeing a man vanish into thin air, after hearing the whole country fall silent under the weight of something they couldn't understand, that I'd take it seriously. But humans are good at lying to themselves when they're scared. I kept thinking, maybe they'll fix this. Maybe the government has a plan. Maybe if I just stay quiet, this will all go away. But deep down, I knew it wouldn't. Not for me. Because that page I burned, the one with my name, it didn't stay burned. I found it again the next morning, not intact. Not whole, but enough. It was lying on my kitchen floor like someone had placed it there, gently. The edge was charred, curling in on itself, but the ink hadn't smudged. The letters of my name were still there, still legible. I didn't touch it. I couldn't. I backed away and stared at it like it might jump at me. My breath went shallow. I looked at the windows, locked, doors, bolted. No sign of a break-in, and yet there it was. I grabbed tongs from the drawer, picked the page up like it was radioactive and stuffed it inside a mason jar. Then I wrapped the jar in a towel, shoved it in my freezer, and sat on the floor for an hour trying not to cry. That was when I stopped pretending. The streets changed fast. By the second day, the sidewalks were empty. Cars were abandoned mid-turn, as if their drivers had simply stepped out and vanished. Every screen in the city still pulsed the alert on loop. I passed a bus shelter and saw a man curled up in the corner with his hands over his mouth. His eyes met mine, bloodshot, unblinking, but he didn't say a word. No one spoke anymore. People walked like shadows, quiet, heads down, only their eyes showing behind masks or scarves or whatever they could pull over their mouths. Conversations happened in whispers or not at all. The city had become a library of the damned. I kept to myself. I had to. I couldn't risk anyone asking who I was. Even thinking about my name made me feel vulnerable. It was like my own brain had become a cracked window, something a breeze could slip through, and I knew that breeze had a scent, and she could follow it. It didn't take long for paranoia to become necessity. People started taping over family photos, peeling name tags off mailboxes, scratching off gravestones in the local cemetery. It wasn't vandalism anymore, it was self-defense. And still, the number kept rising. 73,090, 81,440, 99,501. 3 nights in, I heard her for the first time. It wasn't footsteps, not exactly. It was more like static with weight, like someone had soaked the floor in electricity and it was crackling with every shift of pressure. I was lying on the couch, every light off, the curtains drawn, trying not to breathe too loud. I hadn't slept in 30 hours. Then that sound started, just outside my front door. It wasn't aggressive, it was patient, testing. The sound moved slowly down the hall, like it was brushing its fingers across the doors, waiting for the right one to respond. I pressed my hand over my chest, tried to slow my heartbeat, tried not to think of the name I had buried in the freezer. Then the static paused, right outside my unit. My lungs locked up. I could hear her breathing, soft, shallow, as if she were trying to listen back. I don't know how I knew it was a she, but I did. You could feel the shape of her. Feminine, slow, patient. She didn't knock, she just waited. After a minute, I heard something faint, like paper sliding across the floor. Then silence. I didn't move until sunrise. When I finally opened the door, I found another piece of paper. It was from my notebook. Same handwriting, same name, underlined 3 times in thick red ink. I packed that morning. I knew I couldn't stay. I had tried to erase myself, but it didn't matter. The moment I wrote my name, I became fixed, a signal, a point of contact in a world going silent. I went east, no destination, just away. I stole gas from cars, broke into a rest stop vending machine for food. I avoided people. Too many had already vanished trying to band together, trying to reason with something you couldn't see and couldn't fight. I didn't want allies. I wanted distance. It didn't work. Everywhere I went, the pages followed. I'd wake up to find them tucked into my sleeping bag, folded into the pocket of a coat I hadn't worn since last winter. Once I opened a can of soup, and there it was, floating inside, ink still dry. She wasn't killing me yet. She was watching, waiting. She was giving me time. But for what? There's something different about being hunted when you can't even speak your fear aloud. You start to feel it in other ways, in your bones, in the air pressure around you, in the way the wind shifts direction and carries a kind of static with it. Not sound, scent, not smell, memory. I didn't have words for it then. I still don't. But I could tell when she was getting close. Some people said she couldn't cross running water, that she wouldn't come out in daylight, that if you called yourself a false name long enough, she'd lose the trail. I tested them all. I walked across 100 bridges. I drenched myself in rivers. I shouted fake names into empty fields like a madman. I sat for 3 days in the sun until my skin peeled. She still found me. The pages never stopped. It got worse when I reached the mountains. I don't remember the name of the town. No one did anymore. All the signs had been stripped bare. Street names, store signs, even the post office window had a black cloth taped across it. It looked like a place grieving itself. I pulled into a small gas station on the outskirts and found 2 others inside, a man and a girl. Both silent, both watching me. There was a small whiteboard near the door. Write if you must, never speak, no names. I nodded. The man nodded back. We shared no other words. They were eating from a can of beans with their hands. The girl, she couldn't have been more than 10, had the wide-eyed, hollow look of someone who had seen too much and understood too little. I gave them some jerky from my pack. The man grunted in thanks. He pointed to a cot behind the counter. I slept there that night, and for the first time in weeks I dreamed. But it wasn't a dream. I was standing in my childhood bedroom, everything exactly as I remembered it. Even the way the closet door never quite shut right. I could hear my mom humming from the kitchen, the smell of toast, coffee, safety. Then I heard it, a whisper, low, behind me. "Say it." I turned, and she was there. Not a blur, not a shadow, a woman. She didn't wear a dress or some long flowing robe like the stories claimed. She wore denim, bare feet, a tattered jacket that might have once been army green. Her skin was pale, dry, cracked at the corners like something made of clay, but it was her mouth that terrified me. She had no lips, just a seam of black threads where her mouth should be, stitched tight but writhing, like whatever was inside still wanted to speak. She lifted a hand. Her fingers were long, bone thin. In each one she held a thread. Each thread led to something behind her, suspended in the air, shapes, people, dangling like marionettes. I looked closer. Each figure had a paper pinned to its chest, a name. I recognized some of them. My second-grade teacher, the neighbor who used to walk his dog past my apartment, a friend I hadn't spoken to in 5 years. Then I saw one pin with my name, and the string leading from her finger to me. When I woke up, the little girl was standing over me, holding a piece of paper. It read, "She's close." I left before the sun rose, didn't say goodbye, didn't write anything. I just left them the last of my food and walked back into the forest where I thought I could vanish again. But she was right, she was close. That day, the world felt wrong, like it had shifted on its axis. The birds weren't chirping, no bugs in the brush, no wind. The air was still, like the woods were holding their breath, and I found a new page, not folded this time, pinned to a tree eye level with a bone. It had my name. Beneath it, a single phrase scrawled in that same red ink. "Ready when you are." I don't know why she waited. Maybe she liked the chase. Maybe she was still savoring me, like the kill had to come slow once the name was written. Or maybe, and this is what scared me the most, maybe she wanted me to say it, to admit it, to call myself by my name just once more, because if she could make me do that, she wouldn't have to hunt, she'd win, and I think she likes to win. I didn't want to head toward people again, but isolation was starting to kill me in its own way. You lose your name, and then you lose your voice. Then time, then structure, then the sense that you ever mattered. I started to wonder if the only thing keeping me real was her attention. That maybe the only reason I hadn't vanished already was because she was still watching, still savoring the inevitability of it all. I found the settlement by accident. It wasn't marked, just a string of burnt-out homes in what might have once been a lakeside vacation town. I was following power lines north, hoping for a signal or a solar array or something, anything that would connect me back to the outside world. The town wasn't on any map anymore. That was the first clue. The second was the man standing watch on a rooftop with binoculars in one hand and a machete in the other. When he saw me, he didn't wave, he didn't call out, he just nodded, slow, controlled, intentional. And I nodded back. They called it the Hollow. Not with words, no one spoke them. But one of the walls near the center of the community had been painted in massive letters, "Welcome to the Hollow." It wasn't a name, it was a description. A place emptied of names, a place of silence. Maybe that's why it had lasted. There were maybe 30 people living there, a couple kids, mostly middle-aged men and women. Everyone was armed, everyone watched the woods. There were no campfires, no loud tools, no music. Even the dogs had been trained not to bark. I didn't ask how. I was given a cot in the town library. Every page of every book had been torn out and burned. The shelves were empty, but the silence lingered like the smell of old knowledge. The woman in charge, her name had been replaced with 3 slashes carved into her belt, showed me their system. Everything ran on gestures and chalk slates. Supplies, warnings, even arguments, silent and scrawled. I asked her one thing, pressing a question into a slate. Do names fade over time? She stared at the words for a long time before shaking her head. Then she grabbed her own slate and wrote, "Not unless you take them back." I stayed for 6 days, 6 silent days where I finally slept, finally ate real food, finally let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, she'd lose interest. That maybe burning the page, burying my name under miles of empty road, was enough to throw her off my scent, but I was wrong. It started on the 5th night. One of the kids in the hollow woke up screaming. He'd had a nightmare, that's what everyone hoped, but I knew better. I saw the blood vessels burst in his eyes. I saw the way he clawed at his own mouth like he was trying to rip the sound out of it. The next morning his bed was empty. No body, no trace, just a paper fluttering where his pillow had been. The chalkboard next to it had one word. He said it. The 6th night was worse. A teenager, maybe 17, tried to run. I caught him outside the perimeter just after midnight. I didn't know his story, didn't know his real name, but I knew what he was doing. He had it written on his wrist in pen, a first name, one he was trying to remember. He thought if he could hold on to it long enough, say it one more time, maybe it would make him real again, like a final anchor to who he was before the world had gone mute. He looked at me with wild eyes, holding the blade to his own palm. "Don't," I mouthed, but it didn't matter. He whispered it, just loud enough for the trees to hear. She came 20 seconds later. I didn't see her, but I felt her, that bone-deep pressure, like the world inhaled all at once and forgot to exhale. He disappeared mid-step. His name written on a note, stuck to my chest with something warm and wet. That was when I realized she wasn't just following me anymore. She was using me as bait. The pages weren't just warnings, they were seeds, and people around me, they kept trying to read them, touch them, understand them, like they could decipher the logic behind the deaths. But you can't reason with sound, you can only silence it. That night, I left the hollow. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't want to be the reason they all vanished. Because I knew now, she'd tied herself to me, not because of my voice, not because of my face, because somewhere in the cold silence of my freezer, in that mason jar wrapped in rags, my name still existed. The drive back was quiet, not just in the sense of no radio, no music, those had all gone dead weeks ago, but deep quiet, the kind that sits with you like a passenger. I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone, even though I hadn't seen another soul since leaving the hollow. I didn't stop, not for gas, not for food, not for sleep. I had one goal, end it, destroy whatever part of my name still clung to this world like a dying echo. It wasn't until I reached the city limits that I realized just how much it had changed. It didn't look bombed out. There were no fires or collapsed buildings. In fact, everything looked preserved, frozen in time. Cars still parked neatly, grass growing through the sidewalks, windows intact, but there were no people, no sound, and in every shop window, on every street sign, every license plate and billboard, erased, scraped clean, peeled, spray-painted black. Even the graffiti had become minimalist, just slashes, excess, circles with lines through them, symbols that meant something to someone but not to me. Names had become a virus, and this place, my city, had tried to disinfect itself. But I was still infected. My apartment door was unlocked. I didn't unlock it. That was the first sign she was already waiting. The second was the note on the floor. Another page from the notebook. The ink was smeared, like someone had written it with shaking hands. "You're almost done. Finish it." I stepped inside. The air was ice cold. Not just from the freezer. The whole apartment felt held, like the temperature had dropped in anticipation. The lights didn't work. My phone was dead. Even the second hand on my wall clock was stuck, twitching like it wanted to move forward but couldn't. I walked to the kitchen. The freezer door was already open. The jar was gone. I didn't panic. Not yet. I stood there for a long time, just breathing, trying to listen. Not for sound, but for that pressure. The one that came when she was close. The vacuum silence that dragged the world inward. But there was nothing. I checked the bedroom, the bathroom, the the hallway closet. Nothing. Then I saw the closet door in the hallway, ajar by an inch. That was new. I'd never left it open. I approached slowly, heart pounding. My hand trembled as I reached out. I wanted to slam it shut and walk away, pretend I'd never seen it. But I knew I couldn't. I opened the door. Inside on the top shelf sat the jar, still intact, the towel soaked in something dark, maybe blood, maybe ink. Inside the jar, the paper floated, somehow dry. My name still visible, still legible, still perfect. I lifted the jar, walked back to the kitchen and set it on the counter. No hesitation. I grabbed a hammer. I didn't think twice. I brought it down hard. The glass shattered. The page jumped from the impact, fluttering to the floor like a dead moth. I picked it up with tongs and tossed it into the sink. I doused it in lighter fluid, struck a match and let it burn. This time, I didn't look away. I watched every corner curl black. I watched the ink bubble, then vanish. I stood over it until there was nothing but wet ash and smoke. And then I waited. Nothing happened. No scream, no presence, no static, just silence. For the first time since the alert, I thought, maybe I did it. Maybe destroying the last proof of my name unhooked her from me. Maybe I could be free now. I left the apartment just before dawn. The streets were still empty. The wind had returned, just a little, enough to move leaves. I could hear the chirp of a single bird, the first sound in days that didn't come from her. I walked 4 blocks to a park bench, sat down, and let the sun rise on my face. And for a moment, it was good, until I felt the paper slip into my hand. It hadn't come from my pocket. It was placed into my palm. The texture was familiar, soft, dry, aged just slightly. My fingers didn't want to open. My skin resisted, but I forced it. One word in red ink, too late. Below it, not my name, but a phrase. Your silence is your name now. And then the static began. I turned my head slowly. She was standing across the street, not running, not lunging, not reaching, just watching, like she had been from the very beginning. Her stitched mouth twitched as if she were smiling, and in her hand, a single black thread. It led straight to me. I don't know how I escaped. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I'm already dead, and this is just the residue of thought playing itself out one last time. But I remember running. I remember my lungs screaming. I remember hiding in a storm drain and shivering in the dark for what felt like days. But she didn't follow. She didn't need to, because now I know the truth. It was never about the word itself. It was never about the sound of my name or the shape of the letters. It was the idea of it, the existence of identity in a world that was told to forget. That page I wrote, the one I burned twice, it didn't matter. The moment I wrote it, I turned myself into a beacon. I confirmed that I wanted to hold on, and she feeds on that want. I move constantly now, never staying anywhere more than 2 days. No names, no contact, no sleep if I can help it. But she's still close. Some nights I wake up with a piece of paper tucked under my tongue. Sometimes I hear someone walking barefoot on broken glass just outside my shelter. Sometimes I find messages etched into trees, walls, my own fingernails. Say it. I never do. I've learned. But the truth is, she doesn't need me to say it anymore. Because in the space where my name once was, there's only one thought now. One pulse that beats behind every heartbeat. She knows me, and I will never be anonymous again.